As he strode towards the stables to assemble men, horses and dogs, he met the royal chaplain. When the chaplain heard of the king's plan, he said, "Sire, I must remind you that today is the 14th of September, the feast of the Holy Cross. As king, you should set an example to the people. It would serve you better to be at prayer than to be in the parkland." David laughed in reply. "I'm sure the good Lord will grant me respite to honour his holy rood on another day." In high spirits, the huntsman rode off, and soon the dogs went seeking and searching for a scent among the bushes and trees. It was in vain. Despite the promising weather, there was no game to be found, no hart nor hind they might catch to bring venison to the royal table. King David slowed his pace to enjoy the sunshine and birdsong. Idling behind the main party, he spotted a clearing with fresh green grass. "Good grazing for you, my friend." He patted his horse's neck and trotted on towards the grassy glade. However, his horse refused to move. The king dismounted and pulled the reins to urge the animal to follow him. Still the horse would not budge. "Very well," said David, "I will take some rest here myself." And he walked forward, alone. With an ominous rumble of thunder, a dark cloud rolled across the sky, blocking the light from the sun. David shivered and looked around him. The trees in the glade were ancient hawthorn and formed a perfect circle. Faintly he heard the noise of the hunt, but now, like the bird song, the sound was muted, as if a great distance away. "Almost like another world," the king murmured to himself. He'd no sooner said those words aloud when, crashing into the glade, came a magnificent white hart. David caught his breath in sudden shock. A stag at bay is a dangerous beast. Enraged, its attack can easily gore a man to death. This one had a huge array of antlers, thick, strong, sharp. The stag stretched its neck and gave a mighty bellow, then lowered its head to charge. David trembled in terror. The world seemed to stop. Time slowed down. Hemmed in by the trees, there was no escape. David resolved to die nobly, as a king should. He flung himself on his knees and extended his arms wide to expose his chest to the onslaught. At that moment, the cloud shifted. The sun shone dazzling through the leaves, casting the shadow of the king upon the stag. The beast paused, raised its head, eyes bulging, nostrils flaring. A distinct shape of the Holy Cross rested on the face of the white hart. It quivered, and turning, had stayed loyally around him, and they always knew where he was, for the king's squire rode beside him, bearing the royal yellow gold banner, and William himself was blessed with a mass of thick, curly red hair. Amidst the chaos of the battlefield, William's bright head shone out vividly, which meant that his men were able to find him and rally to support their king. However, it also meant that the enemy soldiers could easily spot King William, as on a day in Caithness, when he fought against the men of Orkney to prove his rule over the far north of Scotland. King William and the Lion Rampant. Sire, you must wear your war helmet. Gavin, the king's young squire, pleaded with his master. Your red hair makes you an easy target for our enemies. Nay, lad, King William answered him, it is you who must leave off nagging me to cover my hair. Every time we prepare to do battle, my ears ache as you sing the same song. I dread the time will come when you will cease to hear that same song. Gavin replied sharply, it will be the day my king's body is carried back from the fray for me to bury. King William glared at his squire, but did not caution him on his cheeky way of speaking. He knew that the boy had his best interests at heart. There is something you should understand about kingship, William spoke gently to the lad. A king must not just lead his people, he must also be seen to lead his people. Gavin returned the war helmet to its place in the corner of the royal tent and sighed while helping the king buckle on his metal breastplate. I cannot show fear to my men, William went on, else they would not stay with me. No one doubts your bravery, Gavin exclaimed as he followed William outside. The nobles awaiting William echoed the cry. Our king is as brave as a rampant lion. The mass of his troops took up the words with cheers and yells. Brave as a lion, brave as a lion. Still praising their king, the Scots surged forward to face their foe. Red-haired William and his squire led the way with the pole of the royal banner fixed in Gavin's saddle sconce. The army of the Earls of Orkney, who had invaded Caithness in the north of the Scottish mainland, was ranged in front of them in ranks. On catching sight of William's hair, the Orcadians shouted a war cry, "The Crimson King! Kill the Crimson King!" Astride his mount, broadsword striking right and left, William was unshaken by their cries and did not flinch from the attack. By his side, Gavin wielded his own weapon. Inch by inch they were gaining. But then disaster struck. A huge Orcadian swung his battle axe, and Gavin was unhorsed. The young squire crashed to the ground, his hand still held aloft the king's golden banner, for he was determined it would not be captured. Despite blows raining down upon his arm, Gavin refused to release his grip. William's men fought on in fury, driving the Orkney army from the field. However, the Scottish soldiers could not rejoice in their victory. Their camp that evening was silent in sadness as Gavin's battered body was carried in on the king's own shield. The young standard-bearer was popular with everyone, and the king especially was overcome with grief. "Och, Gavin, Gavin," William lamented. He looked at his war helmet in the corner of the royal tent. "It is not my ears, but my heart that will ache, if you never sing that same song again." was the sight of his red hair that had attracted the enemy. Without his helmet, the Earls of Orkney had thought to kill him easily, and now his trusted squire was paying the price. There must be a way that a king could combine courage and leadership with common sense, could be seen in battle without baring his head to the blows of the enemy. Very early in the morning, for he could bear the strain no longer, William summoned his doctor. "What news of Gavin, my young squire?" he asked. "Will he live?" "His life is saved," the doctor replied wearily, "but not his arm." "Ah," William groaned. Losing a limb in battle was not unusual, and considered a sign of honour. For his selfish action, Gavin would be rewarded with gold and an important position at the king's court, but William knew that the loyal lad deserved more, a sign for all to see that a king might take wise advice from his own squire. And so William sought out a craftsman from the army baggage train and ordered him to make a long, sleeveless tunic, wide enough to cover the king's body armour. This tunic was to be cut from the cloth of the yellow gold royal banner which Gavin had been steadfastly clutching as he fell, with a significant design to be added. Later, the Scottish troops were assembled, ready for the appearance of their king, to give the command to march home. When King William emerged from the royal tent, a roar reverberated across the lochs to the high hills. To protect his head, the king wore his war helmet. It covered his brilliant red hair, but over his own breastplate was a yellow gold tunic emblazoned with a red lion rampant. With one voice, the nobles and soldiers hailed their king, with Gavin, his faithful squire, stepping forward to shout loudest of all, "William the Lion! William the Lion!" Beyond the legend. The red lion rampant on a yellow gold field became Scotland's heraldic colours, the royal standard, and it is frequently used in addition to the national flag of Scotland. It was only after he died that King William became known as William the Lion. He ruled for almost 50 years, surviving all his battles, living into his 70s and becoming one of the longest reigning Scottish monarchs. He is buried in the renowned abbey he founded at Arbroath. King Alexander III, born 1241, died 1286, reigned 1249 to 1286. Before the legend. King Alexander III was the grandson of William the Lion. In many ways, young King Alexander was like his grandfather, a bold and daring leader. But whereas his grandfather often rushed in to fight, Alexander was more thoughtful and planned carefully before a battle. The Scots were lucky to have Alexander as king at this time, but the country was under increasing threat from the Vikings, who were trying to claim the Western Isles as Norwegian territory. King Alexander realised that if the Norsemen made the Isles their base, then all of Scotland would be in danger. In 1262, when he was barely 21, Alexander declared that the Western Isles belonged to the Scottish people. To confront this challenge, King Haakon IV of Norway assembled a huge number of Viking ships and warriors. The following year, he sailed the Norwegian fleet down the western coast and up the firth of the River Alexander put on a show of nervous confusion, stumbling through his speeches. He meekly offered money and goods, but had not brought with him the Scottish royal seal required to make any treaty document official. He promised to return the following week, whereupon he begged to revise the conditions. He spent days pondering words and phrases, pretending not to understand them. The terms of the treaty had to be explained over and over in fine detail. King Haakon was more than twice the age of Alexander, an able ruler with an exceptionally powerful navy, with which he had conquered Iceland and Greenland. Confident that he could crush this upstart Scottish monarch whenever he chose, Haakon was in no hurry to mount his onslaught. The talks went on and on. Every day Alexander tested the wind and the currents. In mid-September he again consulted Captain Ross. "Sire," the captain advised the king, "we have used the time you bought us to further strengthen our ships and train the men. But while you parley, Haakon is moving vessels closer to us. We should muster all our forces to defend the Scottish seaport at Largs." "Not all of them know," said Alexander. "I too have used the time to devise a strategy. Let us scatter our resources on land and sea throughout the Firth. Concealed in coves and small islands, they can sally forth to raid the enemy's ships. Thus we whittle down the odds. Viking longboats are designed to run swiftly and high upon beaches in shallow water," said Captain Ross, "and now the wind is shifting, providing speed for their sails." "The wind is indeed shifting," Alexander's eyes gleamed, "providing speed for their sails, but with it come storms, roaring in from the wild Atlantic Ocean. Our ships are heavier, the better to withstand foul weather." "The Norsemen will strike soon," Captain Ross warned him, "and when they strike, they will strike hard. Yes, we have stalled them as much as is possible, but although we cannot influence exactly when they will strike," Alexander spoke slowly, "perhaps we can influence where." And lowering his voice, Alexander gave Captain Ross specific instructions as to how to deploy the Scottish foot soldiers. King Alexander was aware that King Haakon's patience was wearing thin, and negotiations were breaking down, but rather than bringing the Scottish fleet and infantry together to meet the inevitable attack, Alexander kept to his strategy, tucking his ship's way about the Firth and placing units of soldiers to guard sandy beaches where longboats were most expected. Then he stationed the greater part of the army not far from a stony shore near Largs. As Alexander stretched out their talks, King Haakon, who was not stupid, became suspicious. Seeing no end to the negotiations, the Norwegian king prepared to invade Scotland. His spies had reported that groups of Scottish soldiers were patrolling the sandy beaches best suited for his longships. Haakon told his commanders to avoid these and instead find an unwatched stony beach where shiploads of armed warriors could anchor and wade ashore. In order not to make a noise with their boots crunching on the pebbles, the men would go barefoot. When such a beach was found, and it was also discovered that the main war camp kings as they gripped their swords and axes. There was only one field of what looked like long grass rushes to run through before they fell upon the sleeping Scots. They charged forward and began to shriek and scream in pain. What the Norsemen had taken for long grass rushes were in fact huge, jaggy Scottish thistles, tall and sturdy with thick barbed spines which viciously tore their skin, stabbed and scratched their faces, and stuck in their bare legs and feet. The howling and yowling of the Vikings alerted the watchmen, who were concealed in ditches and closing the camp. The alarm bell clanged. The Scottish soldiers rose quickly, grabbing targs, broadswords, and claymores. Fighting fiercely, King Alexander and his men chased the Vikings from Largs. The very next day a violent storm blew in from the grey Atlantic Ocean. Alexander's forces were safely moored in protected inlets. Caught in the open, King Hakon's ships were pounded to pieces. Dozens of vessels floundered and sank. Others were damaged beyond repair. With tattered sails, the remainder converged in ragged lines around the flagship of the defeated king, and Hakon's invasion fleet limped home to Norway. On the seafront at Largs stood King Alexander and Captain Ross. King Alexander bent and dipped his index finger in the water at his feet. He held it up in the air, twisting it this way and that, to test the direction of the wind. That breeze will blow the Norsemen back from whence they came. Sire, Captain Ross addressed the king, did you deliberately make it appear that the stony beach, with the almost impassable field of thistles, was less guarded than the sandy ones? I had a hunch that King Hakon was sending advance parties to search for possible invasion points, and so you set a trap with jaggy hooks. Captain Ross touched his fingers to his forehead. As courageous king as your grandfather, but cannier with it. King Alexander smiled and said, rather than seeking glory, sometimes a battle is better fought with guile. Beyond the legend. The conflict in this story is called the Battle of Largs. It led to a treaty with Norway, which settled the Western Isles as Scottish territory for evermore. During King Alexander's reign, the kingdom became more unified, with the development of the Special Assembly or Parliament of People to help pass laws, and Scotland enjoyed years of peace and prosperity. The thistle was later adopted as the national flower and an emblem of Scotland. It first appeared on coins in the 1400s and was incorporated as part of the Royal Arms of Scotland, Order of Chivalry, the most ancient and noble order of the thistle. Well, I hope you enjoyed those 3 stories, and next time